First at 4, it is all blue on the map. That's good if you're at the big house, but not if you're looking for warmer temperatures. We'll tell you when our luck will finally turn. Sandra?
All right, Ben. Also first at 4, trying to make good. Founders Brewing Company announces its plan to recover from a racial discrimination lawsuit. There's a lot of money involved. Evrod?
I'm Evrod Cassimy. Coming up, we're going to go one-on-one with Joanna from The Jell-O Show as she shares her journey to find her biological parents and the moment she met her dad for the very first time.
Live from downtown Detroit, home of WDIV and Click on Detroit, Local 4 News First at 4 starts now.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sandra Ali in for Karen Drew. First at 4, we're hearing from Founders Brewing about its plans to get back in business. This all follows the settlement of a racial discrimination lawsuit filed by a former employee. The brewing company announcing it will reopen in Detroit, but not until next year. They also say they'll donate 100% of profits for the next 3 years to Detroit charities. But the employee who allegedly used a racial slur that started this is still with the company and is on leave right now.
We've had a very, very serious conversation with this employee, and this employee feels terrible about what happened, and but I think they learned their lesson.
Founders now says it's lost more than 100 accounts after backlash from the lawsuit. It says it will hire a new general manager and director of diversity and inclusion before reopening in Detroit. Detroit police investigating a deadly stabbing at this home on Detroit's west side. It happened early this morning on Ashton near Tyerman. That's when police say they found the body of 62-year-old Tony Johnson. Police are trying to figure out the specifics right now. It's possible, though, this was a break-in that turned deadly. Investigators are looking for possible suspects as well. And coming up tonight at 5, we're going to hear from the family of the victim. They're also looking for answers. Continuing coverage for you coming up in a live report. We're hearing from police for the first time during a preliminary hearing for a school worker facing sex charges. Ibrahim Al-Jahim is accused of making a special needs student perform sex acts on him. He's denying those charges. Al-Jahim is a community liaison at Oakland International Academy, which is in Hamtramck. Today, Officer Anthony Gonzalez said police first responded to the school after reports of nude pictures involving the victim. Then they were told about the assault allegations. The hearing continues in 2 weeks to see if there is, in fact, enough evidence to head to trial. It was a messy and a very dangerous morning commute today. Local police report at least 4 deaths connected to the snow and the icy roads. Luckily, though, conditions have improved for tonight's drive home. And take a look here on the left. You can see this morning's snow. It covered lawns and trees. This was as it was falling on drivers in Macomb County. And then on the right, we're looking at downtown Detroit right now. Much more sunshine, but it's not warming up much at all. Let's get over to Ben Bailey now. And Ben, what's our evening look like tonight?
Well, Sandra, for a lot of us, it is going to be dry. It's going to be cold pretty much everywhere with those temperatures not even making it out of the 30s, even with all that sunshine today. The winds are about 10 to 15 miles per hour, but there are some flurries that are showing up here on 4 Live radar. Maybe a couple light snow showers there in parts of Livingston County and other spots in our north zone. But we are going to continue to fall below freezing tonight. Most of us are going to stay mainly clear. And wait till you see these numbers in the 4-zone forecast. Lows tonight going into the teens in most spots. We'll run those down for you, and some slight improvement for the weekend. Slight is the operative word. Coming in just a few minutes. Sandra?
Thank you, Ben. Another key witness refused to show up today for the impeachment inquiry surrounding President Trump, plus a $2 million judgment against the president in a separate investigation. Let's get to Devin Skillian. And Devin, I know there are so many storylines to try to track here right now.
Boy, isn't that the truth, Sandra? A lot going on. The spotlight will get even hotter for the president of the public hearings begin in Congress next week. But today, we start with another no-show. Former National Security Advisor John Bolton did not show up for questioning today. You may recall President Trump fired Bolton. Bolton was invited to testify, has refused to do so voluntarily. While Republicans attack the process, Democrats argue the no-shows only make it look like the president has something to hide. A foreign policy aide to Vice President Mike Pence, on the other hand, did show up to testify. That's Jennifer Williams, first member of the vice president's staff to answer any questions. She was questioned, though, behind closed doors. Williams was one of the people listening in on that now infamous phone call between the president and the president of Ukraine. President Trump has called the phone call, as you know by now, Perfect. Meantime, a New York judge has ordered the president to pay $2 million to an array of charities. That ruling resolves around and it finishes a lawsuit that claimed the president misused his own private charitable foundation to further his political and business interests. So more to come on that coming up here on Local 4 News at 5. Till then, Sandra, back to you.
All right, we'll see you in a bit. Thanks, Devin. First at 4, we're also tracking some of the big stories making headlines around the world. And let's go ahead and start in Mexico. That's where the only suspect in a massacre involving several women and children has now been cleared. The Mexican government under pressure to try to solve the case as funerals begin for the victims. 3 American mothers and 6 children were killed. Investigators call it a case of mistaken identity in a battle between 2 drug cartels. But relatives say the killers had to know they were targeting women and children.
The only explanation that people have put out there that's half logical is that the people that did it to provoke some kind of reaction. In other words, some kind of they use these people as bait of some kind for some reaction.
Some children remain in the hospital recovering from their injuries sustained during that attack. In Italy, a Holocaust survivor now under police protection after receiving anti-Semitic threats. 89-year-old Lillian Segura is a senator for life. She was seen here during an earlier appearance. This was in Parliament. She was only 13 when she was taken to Auschwitz. She's one of just 24 children under the age of 14 to survive the concentration camp. Recently, she created a commission against racism, and right-wing activists in Italy have been aggressively attacking her online. Here at home, a local radio personality is raising awareness about adoption by sharing her own very personal story. She was adopted, and she spoke with our Evrod Cassimy about the search for her biological parents.
You hear Joanna Tuttle sharing personal stories on The Jello Show every morning on 105.1 The Bounce. Well, today, for National Adoption Awareness Month, she is sharing the moment she recently met her biological father for the very first time.
And that's when my heart sank, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna meet my biological dad in the middle of a restaurant. And he just saw me and just stared at me and gave me the biggest hug ever.
It's only been 2 months since that moment, but it has changed her life forever. Joanna Tuttle was adopted at birth and never knew her biological mother or father.
Every time I talk to him or message with him, he tells me he loves me. Wow. And he's glad I've had such a great life.
Joanna's journey to find her biological parents started with a DNA kit. She kept listeners tuned in as she attempted to contact her family, which included a half-sister. As an adult, she was raised by her adopted mother and father, and they're all she's ever known.
I cannot thank her. She is the absolute best, the absolute best. She has given me so much, and I wouldn't trade it for anything.
The adoption journey has been an emotional roller coaster, as you can imagine. One she's experienced with her husband of 21 years, Jeff, by her side.
We've always talked about her and her birth family, and I've always been super intrigued and fascinated by it. And I've tried to convince her over the years to look for her birth family, and she just didn't have the desire to do it.
Until now. But what's even more unique is Joanna and Jeff have an adopted son of their own. After years of trying to get pregnant with no luck, they adopted a baby boy, Reese. He's now 10.
My son Reese is the best thing that's ever happened to me. You do not need that DNA connection to love someone.
And that's the message Joanna wants to share when it comes to adoption. She still has not been able to find her biological mother, but has no hard feelings towards her for not being in her life. She has this to say for those considering adoption.
I would say do it. It has changed my life for the better. I think my life worked out exactly how it's supposed to.
Evrod Cassimy, Local 4.
And more good news. Joanna and her father have kept in touch since they met. She and her husband have been very open with their son about his adoption story and are also in communication with his grandparents as well. Still ahead, we're going to talk about a brand new gaming curfew. You can see if these new rules might work for your children at home. Plus, Doc is in. Hey, Doc.
Hey, Sandra, we're going to talk about beating breast cancer and one thing that might help women boost their odds. Plus, heading into the holidays, we'll talk about which strained family relationships can be the most harmful to your health.
Thanks, Doc. But up first, Whitney Houston fans have wondered about this for years, and now a former companion says she was much more than friends with the late superstar.
It wasn't anything planned, it just happened. And it felt wonderful.
She shares a special romantic memory up next.